maquinitas para que tengan la interpretación. Gracias.
All right. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson, thank you for coming tonight. We're so excited to have you here and continue the conversation about this really fantastic project. Let's see, to start, just want to recognize a few people. First, Alderman Chico and Alderman Mitchell. Alderman Chico and Alderman Mitchell, along with Commissioner Moore and the rest of the elected representatives for the 7th and 10th wards, have been just tremendous partners in this project so far, and we appreciate everything you're doing to help shepherd this along the right way. I'd also like to thank, and actually she just came in the room, Dr. Portis and the New Sullivan Elementary School for hosting us again tonight. And so before we get started, I just wanted to do a quick show of hands. Who is attending one of these meetings for the first time? Okay, great. Thank you so much for being here. We're excited to have you join the conversation. We're eager to hear your feedback and for you to hopefully learn more about this project. So thank you for being here. And then, so for the remainder of the room, if you could just raise your hand if you've come to at least one of the previous community engagement meetings. Okay. Great, thank you so much. Well, we appreciate your continued investment in this project, you continuing to raise concerns where you see them and engage in meaningful conversation. It's great to have all of you here, and we certainly appreciate it. All right. So in terms of agenda, I'll be covering, so I guess Tom Anderson, I've spoken at a couple of these now, so it's easy to go past the introduction, but Tom Anderson, I'm the project manager for this project in the mayor's office on the business and neighborhood development team. Along with Mo Green from Psi Quantum, we'll be talking through kind of some welcoming remarks and then a little bit of a recap from previous meetings. And what we're trying to do here is find the right balance between catching people up to speed who are joining the conversation and then also recapping some important conversation that has happened so far for the rest of the group. So for those of you who have seen some of the material before, we appreciate your patience as we bring everybody else on board. Then we have Rosa Ortiz, who will be talking through details about the quality of life plan and really what it looks like to get involved in that process. And then we've got several representatives from the development team who will be talking about different aspects of the development and the traffic study. So that's Kelly Conley, Mike Pfeffer, and Yannette Garcia who will be jumping in a little bit later in the conversation. And then finally, similar to the last meeting, we'll conclude by having kind of breakout sessions that will focus on different aspects of this project. And I'll, I'll cover all the details of that when we get there. But the short takeaway, we've tried to move those conversations closer so it's a little bit more free-flowing and it's easier for you to pop into one conversation and then move on to another conversation, or if you'd like to just stay in one room. All right, so what we've heard. This is a slide that we shared last time, but we thought it was really important to touch on these themes because they're so critical to this project overall and certainly the community engagement process. So the first aspect here, continuing and expanding transparent communication and information sharing. We know that you all have a lot of great questions about the project and are eager to learn more. And as we have that information, we want to share it with you and get your feedback on it, get your input, and continue to refine it. So we've done a few things that we'll talk through in a minute to help facilitate that process. Like we're doing tonight, this needs to be a community-centered development. This project will not be successful no matter how lofty the goals are around quantum. It won't be successful if it doesn't bring South Chicago along with it, right? And we have heard that loud and clear, and we're going to continue to emphasize that throughout this meeting and future meetings. And then finally, inclusive, meaningful engagement. Hopefully, when you look at the materials tonight and you hear the conversation, aspects of what you have brought up in previous meetings will be reflected in those materials. We've tried to incorporate a lot of that feedback as we continue to work forward, from how we run the meetings to how it actually impacts the project itself. And so we'll be talking through different aspects of that. All right, so that first piece about clear and transparent communication. We've highlighted a number of times that you can go to the IQMP homepage to learn more about this project. And I'll note real quickly, it is the IQMP homepage currently, but that information pertains to the entire project, right? The entire 8080 development, not just the 128 acres that is IQMP specific. And so that website, it's listed here. At the end of the presentation, we have a QR code for you to go access it. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the content that we've added onto there as we continue to refine that. So one piece is putting previous meeting materials as well as the videos. So it's the presentations and the videos, and then notices about upcoming meetings. So that's just the screenshot on the right-hand side. If you scroll down the page, you'll be able to access that information. So particularly for people who are joining the conversation, this is a great resource to go back and look at some of the conversation that we've had so far and how that conversation has continued to evolve. Additionally, if after this meeting, we'll be posting the materials, and if you want to go back there to reference things that we discussed tonight, you'll be able to do that as well. And then we also have a section on frequently asked questions, the FAQs. And that right now focuses a lot on some of the I'll say more basic aspects of the project around, what is quantum, what are the applications of quantum. It's fairly robust right now, but we're going to continue building that out based on the questions that we get and the conversations that we have in these meetings. So that's another place to go back and quickly reference some of the conversation. And appreciate everybody who's been asking for this type of these enhancements to the website and pushing us to do that. I also wanted to highlight that the IEPA has set up an IQMP specific website. And so in addition to the IQMP page that I just highlighted, if you're interested in specific aspects around environmental remediation or the environmental conditions of the site, or about how IPA runs their standard processes, that's available on this page, or you can link to other IEPA resources as well. So I wanted to make sure that we're highlighting that here too. All right, so the next part is meant to be a little bit more interactive. For those of you just joining us, it's a chance to see what your kind of perception is based on conversations that you've heard or maybe what you've read in the newspaper. For everybody who's been here a little bit longer, hopefully this is stuff that is kind of familiar from previous discussions. All right, but the first question, what portion of quantum jobs require a PhD? So if we could just get a show of hands for A, more than 90%. All right, a couple people. All right, B, more than half. Okay. All right, C, more than a third. Okay. Yeah, great question. So this is about quantum on the whole, right? So this is involving any type of quantum research, whether it's developing quantum computers, if it's like quantum transmission, those types of jobs. Right? So this is not, if you're answering this from the lens of construction jobs, then I think you're definitely going with D. But okay, so then for the last one, D, less than a third, how many people? Okay, so appreciate you humoring me on that. And the correct answer is actually D, less than a third. And yeah, this is some really great research that the CQE, the Chicago Quantum Exchange, led that looked at jobs in the quantum industry in 2022 and 2023. And I've put the report there at the bottom, so you can go back and look at it if you're interested and read more about this. But I think the key message here is that 55% of jobs in quantum only required a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree, or did not require a degree at all. When you look at a master's degree, that's about 14%, and a PhD is 31%. And I think the overall message is like, yes, this is very technical. Yes, there are a lot of people with very advanced degrees in this space, but there are a lot of other people who have entered this space without those advanced education degrees, and it is more accessible than people might think. All right, this is a true or false question. So true or false, this project will not limit park access. Can we get a show of hands for people who think that's true? Okay, all right, great. Yeah, that's totally fine. Okay, and then for people who think that that's false, this project will not impact park access. Okay, and then there are a lot of people that are unsure. I appreciate that. And that's hopefully why you're all here tonight. So the correct answer for this is true. This project will have no impact to Steelworkers Park, Park 566, Rainbow Beach Park, Schaefer Park, or any of the other parks in this community. And that is something that has been critical to the development team to maintain that access throughout the duration of the project. And then one more true or false question that gets into a little bit of how the quantum facility works. So you've probably heard at this point that that quantum requires extremely cold temperatures to operate. That's part of the nature, part of the physics of quantum technology. So to achieve those ultra cold temperatures required for quantum computing, the IQMP, the quantum and microelectronics park that we're talking about tonight, will use the same common gases that make up our atmosphere and are even used in balloons. True or false? So for everybody that thinks that's true, could you raise your hands? All right, for people who think that's false? All right, a little bit mixed. And people who have no idea? Okay, that's great. I was certainly in the same boat. So the correct answer here is true. So the cooling process that will cool the quantum computer and allow it to operate the way that it needs to runs off of nitrogen and helium. Those are both common safe gases. Nitrogen makes up the majority of the atmosphere, and helium, of course, is used in party balloons and other kind of everyday uses. All right, so we'll dive into a little bit more kind of heavier content, but I just want to start off with a little bit of a lighthearted, sensing in the room of kind of where we're at in terms of our understanding of different aspects of this project. All right, so the timeline overview. This is a piece, we highlighted the timeline in the previous community engagement meeting, but one of the pieces of feedback that we got in that meeting is that there is a lot happening right now, and it's very complicated. It's hard to understand what pieces are happening when and where and how that impacts all of you. And so what we've tried to do here is break it out into 3 sections that are zoning, construction, and community engagement. And I'll say up front that this is one of the pieces that has been talked about a lot as you look across all 3 of these timelines, is that they are relatively fast timelines. And this is a piece that is really critical to seizing this moment, where we have a developer, we have the anchor tenant, PsiQuantum, we have state, county, and city resources that are all aligned on this project. And so this timeline is really about seizing that moment and recognizing that it is, quantum is a global, it's a global technology, and if these facilities aren't built here, they're going to be built somewhere else. And so this is potentially an opportunity that we miss out in terms of jobs, in terms of the tax base, in terms of the educational opportunities, so many different aspects of this project that we want to have here in Chicago. So in terms of zoning, the first thing, that first bar at the top, what I'll highlight here is that this is the standard zoning process. The PD, the plan development, was filed October 9th. It will go to Plan Commission in the next month or 2. After that, it'll go to the Committee on Zoning, and then it'll go through City Council. Then beyond that, and this kind of gets back to some of the aspects that we spoke about in the last meeting, because the site is so large, it's being chunked into different pieces, and those subsequent pieces, following the IQMP, that initial 128 acres, will require site plan approval through the standard process. And so we've kind of highlighted that here, that those site plan approvals will take place at some point in the future. I'm not trying to indicate on the slide that that'll happen in April or June, but as those portions of the site are ready to go for site plan approval, then they will be approved at that point. The second row is on construction, and so that's some of the stuff that, hey, Sarah, if you need to take more chairs too, you're welcome to, thank you. Construction, right? Right now, and the development team will talk through this in a little bit more detail. Right now they're going through the design process, and then concurrently with that, also working through the permitting process. This project is required to get the same permits that any other project is required to, for those that trigger, the same whatever aspects of design that lead to those permitting pieces. The goal, like we talked about in the last meeting, is a Q1 groundbreaking. So Q1 2025. So sometime at the start of next year, a groundbreaking with the goal of completing the PsiQuantum Phase 1 building in early 2026, and the rest of the IQMP Phase 1 in late 2026. So like I said, that's an ambitious timeline, and that's why getting your feedback now and throughout the process is so critical to doing this effectively. I also wanted to highlight, you'll see a few bullets there underneath it about the environmental aspects of this project. And I'll talk through that in a little bit more detail, but from a timeline perspective, I just wanted to highlight that there may be additional remediation that is required as this project moves along. If things are discovered on the site that we don't know about today, then those will need to be remediated in accordance with the IEPA. And like I said, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I wanted to highlight that those are, that's potentially going to happen down the road. And then the last piece I wanted to just hit on is the community engagement process. So right now is obviously the 29th. December 10th will be the next community engagement meeting, and I'll flag that again at the end of this presentation. And then we're expecting to continue that sequence of meetings through Q1 and Q2 of next year. Not necessarily monthly, we're going to evolve it based on community needs and project needs, but that's the timeline. And then I also wanted to highlight the quality of life plan, which we're fortunate enough to have Rosa Ortiz to speak to tonight. But that will run separately and independently from this project, but it'll happen concurrently. And really importantly for everybody in the room, those two processes are going to talk to each other. So the quality of life plan won't be developed in a vacuum without any consideration for what is happening from a development perspective. And likewise, from a development perspective, as we learn things from the quality of life plan and the engagement that Rosa and Clarice and Lisk are leading, we want to feed that back into the process so we can continue to refine the overall project. All right, and I apologize in advance because some of this is going to be a little bit dense, marching through a few of these pieces, but we wanted to highlight different aspects of this project because they were so critical to the work that we're doing and to all of you understanding various aspects of the project. So, like I said, these will be posted afterwards. So if I go too quickly, then there will be an opportunity to look at these later. But I wanted to highlight a handful of things. All right. So the first is the environmental considerations of the site. This question has come up a lot. There is an NFR, a No Further Remediation Act, or no Further Remediation Letter for 1997. That speaks to the entirety of the project. The IEPA has reviewed that and has determined that the site is safe for occupation. But that doesn't mean that remediation is done or that there isn't the risk for potential contamination down the road. And so the developers, Related Midwest and Clayco, are enrolling in the site remediation program with the IEPA to address those remediation needs as they come up. And so that will continue to happen and address environmental concerns as they're identified. When they do identify something, there's a question that we've heard a lot about: what will remediation look like? And typically remediation takes one of a couple different forms. It could be active remediation, that first bullet about actually removing the material that's contaminated to get to a point where the chemical concentrations are to a safe level. It might be putting an engineered barrier or some other kind of institutional control that protects people from contamination at that site. Or if chemical concentrations are identified but they're not of a concerning level, then there may be a case where you take no action. And then certainly there's a combination of these based on whatever the potential contamination is. And so this is something that the development team has a lot of experience with, having done a lot of developments in Chicago, and is also working closely with the IEPA to make sure that those are identified and remediated in the proper way. So then we also have a lot of questions about environmental impact, not just of the site today, but what does it look like during construction? Right, you have a lot of moving vehicles, you have digging. What does that look like to try to mitigate that? So of course, this project will adhere to EPA, OSHA, and local regulations in terms of how they manage the construction of the site. The development team will also be establishing approved trucking routes. And so we'll talk a little bit more about the traffic study in a few minutes, but that is really, the intent there is to make sure that these industrial vehicles that are involved in construction aren't using residential roads. They're sticking to the main roads and avoiding going through the community. The development team will be installing silt fences and sediment barriers. They're going to have sweeping machines out there to collect and remove dust. In terms of noise, this question has come up quite a bit, and this project will be held to the City of Chicago noise ordinance the same way anybody else's, which requires, it has limitations around noise, any kind of noise from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then the developers will also have noise monitoring activities throughout the construction process to make sure that they're adhering to that. And then finally, dust has come up a lot, right? Dust certainly could impact the parks, or it could impact the community if it's not mitigated. And so we've highlighted here a number of precautions that the development team is taking to make sure that that's addressed. And so those involve water trucks, reduced speed limits to make sure that there's no dust being kicked up by the vehicles, and then construction fence and screens to mitigate dust or particulate material. In terms of operations, once the site is up and running, and this is probably a big question for a lot of people, because I think, like myself, we don't fully understand what quantum entails and everything that will be going on at the site. I think the important thing here, though, is one, that there are essentially zero emissions from the quantum computer, that industrial scale, utility scale quantum computer that PsiQuantum is building. And that is coming from the ComEd grid and their 100% carbon-free electricity. And then that's also a factor of, like I said, the nitrogen and helium being used in the cooling process. Additionally, there will not be any water pollution. So depending on the final designs of the water cooling system, there may be some water that is taken from the lake or the river as part of that cooling. But that water will not come into direct contact with any machinery in the facility. And if water has to be discharged into the lake or the river, that will abide by IEPA discharge regulations. All right, local participation. We've gotten, rightfully so, a lot of great questions about how you can get involved if you're a small business or if you're somebody who's interested in working on the site. And so for local residents, the first thing, I'm going to put in another plug for the Quality of Life Plan. Rosa Ortiz and her team are going to be leading a great process, and we want to hear all of your thoughts and considerations, not just for the project, not just related to quantum, but everything about your community. So that's the first place to get involved in the conversation. The second one is construction workforce training. We're going to spend a lot of time in the meeting on December 10th getting into what the pipeline looks like for education and workforce. We'll talk a little bit about some of those aspects today. But that will be coming down the road, and there will be an opportunity to get involved in that. And then certainly for local companies, there will be a contractor outreach fair coming up. Yannette will speak a little bit to that. Professional services, local businesses, you can use this QR code to access that. And then the thing that we're doing on the backside is just sharing that across, the IQMP team, development team, so that it's not just speaking to construction here. This is speaking to any type of business or individual that wants to get involved in the campus. And then at the bottom there, what requirements are there for minority or women-owned businesses? Just the standard certification here, City of Chicago, Cook County, and the state of Illinois. And I'll cover that a little bit more as we look at participation in construction. So the same goals that the city has, around 26% minority business enterprise participation for total contract trade value, applies to this project, as well as the 6% woman-owned business enterprise goal that the city has. And in order to participate in either one of those programs, you need to be certified either through the City of Chicago or Cook County. And then I think it's really important to note just that if you're not certified today, but you're interested, that doesn't preclude you from being involved. We can start that certification process. We can assist that certification process to make sure that you're able to participate. All right, so then, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about education and job pipelines today, and we're going to continue this conversation in great detail coming up. So I think the big takeaway here is that there is a lot of stuff that's already happening to create opportunity for people in South Chicago and people across the region, certainly in Chicago, and we know that it's going to continue to grow as this project grows. And so some of those things that are happening already are training teachers so that teachers understand the opportunities in the quantum space and are able to educate their students on those opportunities and support them going through that process. And I think that those are already happening, but what we'll be looking to do is scaling those programs and then really making sure that they're based here or at least have a physical presence here in South Chicago. Because we know that for teachers and for students, the time to get to some of these programs, the transportation barriers to get to some of these programs could prevent people from participating. And so we need to make those accessible and bring them here to the community. We'll talk a little bit about that. City Colleges of Chicago is already expanding its College of Engineering over the next 2 years, and that will create opportunities and increase capacity for people to get training to get involved in this space. Chicago Quantum Exchange, they led a summit last week. They also did a quantum game night, which I know at least a handful of people were able to participate in at Bowen High School. They'll continue doing that, but they are a key partner for us in helping to reach students and teachers alike as we build out the pipeline here. And then also wanted to highlight that the state is continuing to support this. Governor Pritzker had a new $3 million grant program with the State Board of Education to advance computer science education and equity in computer science. And so I think along with bringing these resources to the community here in South Chicago and residents that live immediately across from the site, we're also bringing the full ecosystem, right? So it's the universities, the colleges, CPS, private companies, PsiQuantum, the development team, all of those resources together to help build out this pipeline. And so with that, I actually wanted to bring up Mo Green, who spoke at the last community engagement session. He's from PsiQuantum, and just talk a little bit about some of the work that they've already started doing.
Thank you. Ooh, this is not built for taller people. How you guys doing? All right. I can't complain. I cannot complain. Thank you for asking. Again, my name is Mo Green. Last time I was here before you, I was on week 2 of the job. I'm on week 6 of the job, and I'm a different kind of beast, I'm happy to report. But we have been hard at work and very busy doing the community engagement work that is needed for this project. Just recently, one of our founders, Pete Shadbolt, came into town, and I thought it would be really good for him as leadership of this company to get a feel for South Chicago and get a feel for our schools. One thing that we've heard in the community meetings that we've done is, this is really great, we're excited about this project, but what about the kids? It's hard to be excited about quantum coming to the south side of Chicago when we are fighting to get one algebra teacher, no less a computer science or chemistry or physics teacher. And that is something that we heard and we took to heart. So this trip with Pete in town last week, we thought it was important in conjunction with Alderman Chico and Alderman Mitchell's office to put together a roundtable with all the schools in the 10th and 7th Ward. All principals were invited to this meeting. And we had a very frank and candid conversation to educate our leadership about some of the very real concerns and limitations in our schools, whether that be public, charter, or private, in ways, and we had also had a very candid conversation on ways that PsiQuantum, as the anchor tenant and as a future neighbor in South Chicago, can be helpful in closing that gap. What we did not want to do is come up here and tell you, this is what we're doing with workforce development. I'm a firm believer that the community needs to be involved in what that plan or whatever it is looks like, and this is one of the first steps in doing so. In the coming weeks, we're going to be meeting with folks from city colleges, from CPS. We had a meeting last week with UIC, and we also want to meet with some workforce development leaders to get a really strong sense to do some really good engagement so we get this right, because we want to come here and we want to stay here. And in order to fill the jobs that we need at PsiQuantum and at IQMP, we need to make sure that members of the community are educated and prepared for those jobs. So know that that's something that we're thinking about. It's important for us to hear you, for you guys to hear us hearing you, and these are conversations and engagement we're going to continue to have. Before that, I go to Birria Akdolan at least twice a month. I had to take my boss there to get a feel for one of the best birria places in Chicago. And we also had a really great conversation with Andres Reyes, the owner of Akdolan as well. And we want to continue to do some really thoughtful and intentional engagement with small business owners. So that's all I wanted to report. We're listening to you. We're taking the necessary steps. And at least for me, I am hitting the ground running, and we want to make sure that this is a success not only for us, but for all of you guys in all of South Chicago. So thank you.
All right. So, okay, thank you for that. Yeah. The comment here was, you say that you're listening to us, but I don't recall being in those meetings. And what I'll say to that is that we want to and need to engage with all of the stakeholders in this community. And so that means direct residential engagement like we're doing tonight, and that's going to continue in a lot of different formats. But that also means meeting with principals to see where they're at and where their schools are at, meeting with educators to see where they're at. And so we're going to continue to do that. Certainly not everybody can be in every meeting, but we are going to do our best to have an inclusive process around that. And actually to speak to that inclusive process, timely, and the breadth of the engagement that we're trying to do. And this is, I want to highlight, so Rosa Ortiz from 3E Studio will come up here and talk about the quality of life plan, explain a little bit more about what it is, the type of impact it can have, and the process. But I wanted to highlight, as I mentioned earlier, this is an independent process. It is really critical for this, for all of our work, and this is from the city, not from the development side, for our work collectively to be successful in South Chicago, we have to have a community-owned vision that is truly inclusive and representative of the community. And so we have worked with United Way of Chicago and their local partners, LISC and Claretian, who have also brought on Rosa to lead that effort. And so she's going to talk a little bit more about what that means. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you, all of us, everyone here. I am extremely grateful to be able to spend this evening with all of you. I know we're all learning a lot of great things, and more than anything, we're getting to know each other, to collaborate, to understand each other, and to listen to each other as well, as you just mentioned. I want to also share a little bit more about the Quality of Life Plan. We just started this process, so that's the first thing that I want to start off with. We are very much in the beginning stages. At the last meeting where we were here, we let you know a little bit about we were going to start this, and now we're here again to let you know the next steps that are coming up so that you can let us know where to go, where to meet you, how to talk to you, what ways are important and work for you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Are you hearing an echo? No? Okay, let's do this. Wonderful. So the Quality of Life Plan is really a wonderful process that can allow all of us to come together to plan and to shape a wonderful and holistic future. So if maybe can I get a raise of hands of anyone who has participated in a Quality of Life Plan before? Yes, thank you, Sylvia. All right, it's been a number of people and a couple of other ones who maybe haven't. So we're gonna take this journey together. It's really a journey that is about you and for you. And so we really want everyone to participate. It's really an inclusive process, it's a community-wide process, and it's a community-led process. So you'll see throughout the presentation right now, it's a short one. So you'll know a little bit about how to connect and how we can all become partners. Again, we're looking for everyone to participate. And the convener, the organization that's serving as a convener is Claretian Associates. And I'll be helping lead that process. I'm an independent consultant, born in Mexico, Chicago, raised. So really happy to be able to bring my humble skills to the table to serve all of you. So, for the people that have made and have been part of Quality of Life Plans, you might know why this is important. If you don't, I wanted to highlight a couple of things of why this process could be important. One is that it'll help people, everyone of different backgrounds, of different expertise, come together. It'll help us analyze data, share ideas, share dreams, share hopes and aspirations, really think about what our strengths are as a community, what the challenges are in the community, and then be able to really think about how do we strengthen our strengths, tackle the challenges, and create one central document that everyone can reference and say, look, this is part of who I am, this is what we're excited about as a community, and be able to then also use that to ask for resources, to ask for funding, to ask for services collectively. So those are some of the big, sort of highlights, but the ultimate piece is really that this quality of life plan will lead to a better and improved quality of life for everyone who lives here. So that's really the essence of what the work that's at hand. For those that may or may not know, it's always important to have an example. Like, okay, so what has happened in other places, in other communities? So this slide, and what we see on this small screen is very different than what you're seeing up there, because I understand it's blurry. I was sitting there trying to read things. So if you can't see it, I'm happy to share it with you, but otherwise I'll just walk you through the slide. The text isn't exactly important. I'll walk you through it, and I can elaborate more on that. So this is a very recent quality of life plan. We just finished it in the spring of this year with Little Village. It took us just over a year to finish it with them. We had a great opportunity to get to know a lot of organizations, a lot of people, a lot of different groups. And we also had the privilege of being part of the 2013 plan. So 10 years ago we did this plan with them. We came back 10 years later and said, okay, so what's been done? So here are a couple of highlights. For education, this community was able to increase the graduation rate from 78% to 84%. The other big highlight across for education, college enrollment rates increased from 46% to 84%. The community said, hey, that's right, it is not easy. And so people are coming together to say education is at the core of who we are and a value that we want to uphold, and we're putting all our eggs in that basket and going to make a difference. Another big piece, green space and recreation. There are a lot of schools that had just pavement as part of their recreational space for their kids. And they said, you know what, that is not what we want. We want green space, we want playgrounds, we want places where people can convene, old and young, and come together. And so this particular plan in this community had 7 different areas that were renovated or newly created. And so these, again, are big milestones. It's work that has happened across 10 years. And the last one I'll mention is economic development. So across these 10 years, $65 million, and that's a low ball, were able to be invested in this community because they said, hey, this is the plan that we're working on, this is what is important to us, and we want everyone to know and to be clear about what our priorities are. So again, it's just an example of what and how impactful these community plans can be when they're genuine, when they're important, where everybody contributes. So how are we going to engage? As we said, this is the very beginning of the process. We're an open canvas, a blank canvas to really work on this with you. We got a survey going right now to understand, what you find are the qualities of the community, what are the challenges that you want to tackle. We're going to have community gatherings. We're going to engage individuals and organizations to help guide this process. And then also, we're going to continue to have meetings, committees, and small group discussions as well. So various ways to participate. Specifically, between September and December, we were here for the last meeting, September 26th. You saw Angela. October 29th, we're happy to be here and tell you more. December 10th will be the next meeting. We're happy to give you updates and share where and how to get involved. We have the survey up and running. It's in English, and it's in Spanish, and it's short. So hopefully you can just get onto it at the beginning of your day, at night, whenever you're taking a little break. We have the QR codes coming up, but also at the table in the hallway. We will also be engaging with individuals and organizations, and we want to participate and are open and excited to participate in resident meetings, religious events, school events. I know holidays are coming, so if there's any events that are happening, please let us know. We're happy to be there. And just any other community-wide events. So this is it. There's our QR code. If you have questions or anything, please let us know. I know everyone here has an opinion, and I know everyone here can see the strengths of each community, of this community. And I know also that a lot of people have want to express where there are challenges. And so this short survey allows you to start that conversation and really be part of how we walk together on this journey. We're also, again, wanting to invite everyone to let us know of any community events that are happening so we can be part of those conversations. Yes, the Little Village? Yeah. Yeah, so the community area that we showed was Little Village. Little Village is, a lot of you may know, 26th Street. So 26th Street has been long time a strong anchor. And actually there's been a lot of long-term residents there. Density across the last 20 years has decreased, but density there, if you know about Little Village, is very intense, and it was very dense, so it's actually been balancing out to have an increase in home ownership, so that meant a few less people, a lot less crowding in the housing that was there. And so Little Village really hasn't experienced a lot of gentrification. In fact, they're very early on in the process, acting and being proactive about home ownership, about businesses being locally owned, and about affordable rental housing to be in place. So Little Village really hasn't experienced a whole lot of gentrification, and that's why it's really important that they had this plan done now to be even more proactive about how can residents continue to stay in the community. Thank you. Yeah.
What sparked the creation of a quality of life plan for Little?
Yeah, so Little Village, predominantly Mexican community and anchor for a lot of first immigrants coming into the city. They had a lot of growth, and there was a lot of people in that in that community, and it was very dense. So a lot of people, a lot of opinions, a lot of schools that were experiencing overcrowding, a lot of schools that weren't meeting the needs of the students. In fact, some of you might know the hunger strike that happened at the time. And so there were a lot of things where people wanted to come together and say, look, education is important, safety is important, health is important. But there were organizations working on different areas and kind of in silos. And they said, you know what, we can't not be working in silos. We've got to work together. There are such few resources that we can't afford for everyone to do this and that and this and here. And so that's why they said, you know what, we need to come together and think about all these pieces together, because otherwise, you know, we're not gonna make it. We need to be fully engaging in the resources. I'm gonna take one more question just to be respectful of all the speakers. The gentleman in the back had his hand up first.
My name is Kevin Newman. I was a member of the original planning committee for Steelworkers Park. And I look at Schaefer Park as a park for the local elementary school to play soccer there. And I'm very worried about the truck dust on Lakeshore Drive there and going through the neighborhoods to get to South Chicago Avenue or going whether north or south from the job site. And I've worked construction before, so I know the kind of dust and dirt that is feeling at truck time. So they're going to have some way of mitigating those trucks before they leave the job site, because I see more and more children and adults playing soccer at Schaefer Park.
Great, thank you. I will note that question on the quality of life plan. I would invite you to be part of the environment conversations. I think that would be very appropriate. Please share your name with me in the hallway with your name, and I will let them also talk a little bit more about how construction and other pieces may continue to be a topic of conversations throughout. So please, let's connect. So we went through this one. Here's the survey. And please, let's connect. My information is there. This QR code, if you want to sign up, if you want to hear about when our next meetings are, if you want to invite us to go to your meetings, gatherings that you're having, please let us know. We are happy to be there with you, be a partner, and listen to all of you. Again, we're going to be in the back in the hallway. I'm also going to bring Tiara Owens up. Can you please? Many of you know Tiara. Thank you. And yes, a round of applause for Tiara for all the work that you do. You'll see us throughout the community wanting to connect with you, waiting to listen to you as well, and putting our humble professional skills to the table so that we can support each and every one of you, create a unified community, a unified vision for the community, and actual steps to make it happen. So thank you so much. I will turn it over to Tom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosa. And I would just say, I know it's hot in here, so if you need to step out and if you want to grab a bottle of water there in the hallway, feel free to do so. All right, so the last part of this presentation is a very exciting part. We're going to get into different aspects of the development from a traffic update and then aspects of the design and kind of where those different pieces are at. So I will turn it over, and I misspoke earlier. I think Ann Thompson is going to be speaking, right? So just want to highlight that. But yeah, we'll turn it over to Kelly Conley to talk a little bit about traffic and then get into the rest of the development updates. Thank you.
They gave me the front slot to talk about traffic first. Thank you for having me. My name is Kelly Connolly with Sam Schwartz Engineering. I've been working with the development team and the City of Chicago, specifically the Department of Transportation, to look at traffic and the impacts of this development. And I apologize, this is the first time I've been with you guys. We've been working in the background a lot, but it's my pleasure to be here and to give you a little update on what we've been working on. There's a couple bullets here that I want to walk through before getting into the specifics of the site. What is a traffic study? What have we been working on? So we've been thinking through how this site will impact traffic flow. So a traffic study looks at data. We go out and we do traffic counts at intersections. We count pedestrians, we count buses, we count bicycles, and we plug that in, and we count during mostly the 2 peak rush hour periods of the day, and then we select the peak of that time to sort of test capacity of the roadways surrounding the site. On this map, can you see it okay? I guess you can't see the roadways all that well. But this is the initial study area in red dotted lines. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 intersections that we looked at initially, did traffic counts, and that initial study sort of revealed a very heavy commuter pattern to and from Indiana. All of the intersections that you see in green, which are the dots, we have it divided sides, AM peak hour and PM peak hour. That's showing a level of service. We use a grading system, A through F, similar to school, to grade the operations, specifically the traffic operations of an intersection. A through D is sort of an acceptable level of service. We're showing that in green. And then, does this have a pointer on it? No. And then in yellow and red, you'll see in a few more slides, those are indicating levels of service E, and then finally level of service F in red. And so I can talk through all of those pieces, but in this initial study, we have the results showing that everything is operating at a level of service D or better currently. And a lot of them have excess capacity. So we also look at volume to capacity ratios to say as a percent, how much of the roadway capacity are we using with the traffic volumes. So a lot of excess capacity on these specific intersections. And so again, we did this in coordination with CDOT, and so they have reviewed and are reviewing, continuing to review our studies. Based on feedback that the development team had received from the community, we wanted to look at an expanded study area. So that initial red dotted line had expanded to these intersections you can see on the map. The original in sort of that cyan, grayish purple color, and then the additional intersections shown in blue. So we conducted additional traffic counts based on those commuter patterns that we saw in the original traffic counts and also in discussions with the community. And then finally looked at the capacity results using our models, what is happening at each of these intersections. So again, in a similar vein, the green, yellow, and red color coding of the intersections, green being levels of acceptable levels of service, yellow being level of service E, and then F being sort of that failing level of service. So there were 3 locations that we identified as part of that expanded study area that we've been in touch with the Department of Transportation about. Those intersections I've listed on this slide. We've done some testing to figure out what type of improvements could be done at the intersections. The first 2 are quite straightforward signal timing adjustments. Can make all the difference in the world. A few seconds in a signal timing plan can mean a lot for progression of traffic flow, if you will. And then the last intersection, Ewing 95th and Avenue L, as I'm sure you're aware, it's a highly complex intersection, a 5-legged intersection that's actually on the city of Chicago's radar as one of the 100 most complex intersections in the city, and so they're currently evaluating that, and so we're seeking further input from CDOT on that as they hope to improve pedestrian and bicycle access through the area. I wanted to mention that, as we move through the phases of this process from a traffic standpoint, looking at that initial study with phase 1, expanding the study area based on community feedback, we will continue to evolve the traffic study as additional phases of the development are added. So while only looking at the initial buildings at first, as development plans come online, we will be required by the city to look at how that additional traffic is added. So all of those studies will be updated as additional development proposals come forward. And with that, I'll introduce Related to talk a little bit more specifically about the development. First, Yannette Garcia, VP of Construction with Related.
Buenas noches. Buenas noches. Good evening, everyone. My name is Yannette Garcia. I'm Vice President of Construction with Related Midwest, and I am excited to be back here for the third time with you guys tonight to talk about the development and the update that we have for you. As for some of you that may be new today, which I saw a lot of hands earlier when Tom asked, we are the developer for the site. We come to you with over 35 years of experience in developing in the city of Chicago and across the state of Illinois. Related Midwest has a long-standing history of community engagement and building with community in their communities through contracting, workforce development, and youth programs for local residents. Most importantly, we are committed to working with you to create a model for how socially responsible development can transform our communities. And so because we believe in this project will be the catalyst for investment in South Chicago and adjacent communities for generations to come. At the last meeting, we presented some of our early design work, And so tonight, we will show you our progress. So I ask that you please keep in mind that some of what you will see tonight is still conceptual. And so as we are working to be intentional and thoughtful through this process, we are getting there slowly. With that said, I would like to introduce Ann Thompson, who many of you have met the last time we were here. Ann Thompson is Executive Vice President of Architecture and Design with us at Related. We also have Mike Pfeffer from our team. He is Senior Vice President and will be available to speak, answer any questions we may have in our breakout session. So Ann.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you again this evening. I'm here on behalf of a whole host of design professionals, architects, engineers, landscape architects who have been working on this project over the last few months, and I'm excited to show you updates on their work. There's sort of 4 topics that I'd like to cover. The first is to sort of talk a little bit about the urban design guidelines that we have started developing for the project. These are really important, especially when you're talking about a project like this that is such a large area that we'll be developing over a length of time. And as I mentioned, there's a whole host of design professionals, engineers, that all come to bear on a project like this. And it's very important in the same way that the community needs to come together. We need all of our design professionals to rally around a certain set of principles. It's almost like a set of values for the project that you want to achieve. And so we as a team have started developing those, and it'll inform our work over. Absolutely, and we'll talk about that. Thank you. So those guidelines kind of start to fall into 4 categories as we're developing them. The first is to talk about regional and neighborhood connectivity. We talk about edges, and this is where the development parcels meet existing residential neighborhoods and existing parks. Environmental consideration. This is fundamental to any development, particularly here, where we want to make that sort of a critical part of our design philosophy across the site. And then, of course, cultural interpretation. This is a site that has great legacy for the neighborhood, for the city, for the state, frankly, for the nation. We want to consider how we might tell that story over the course of this development. We also will have updates on the IQMP sub-area that we introduced last time, as well as updates on the Sci-Quantum Phase 1 building that we'd like to show you. Again, very, very early conceptual designs, but we'd like to sort of start discussing those with you. And then last, we'll talk about the development impact plan for the project. So again, just starting with the urban design guidelines. The first category that we talked about, and what I want to delve into a little bit more, is this idea of regional and neighborhood connectivity. This starts to go into a couple topics that we have been considering over the whole course of this project. First is to prioritize alternative modes of transportation, not just vehicular transportation, but looking at the existing bike lane network. How can we enhance that? How can we add to it? Improving existing connectivity to Lake Michigan, to Steelworkers Park, and to the existing Park 566. We also want to do something that we call meanwhile uses. This is a project that's so big. If we could, sorry.
What is Park 566?
It's the park to the south of the slip. Or, I'm sorry, to the north of the slip. I'm sorry.
Is that Rainbow Beach?
It leads up to Rainbow Beach. Sorry. Sorry, going back to, so we want to activate underdeveloped parcels for interim uses. This is something that's really important in a project this big. You know, it takes time to develop such a big parcel of land, but there are opportunities for us to activate that even while that's happening. So we call it interim uses, and that can be recreation spaces, farmers market, spaces where the community can come together. So we're starting to think about that, how that can happen along the site before some of the development occurs. So this is an image of the area of the slip in the Orwell area just to the south, and this is where we can start to employ these ideas and these principles. So we can see that this is an area where we can bring direct and enhanced connectivity to the lakefront parks. So as we mentioned, the parks are not impacted as part of this development. It's not part of the development area, but what we can do is help create greater access to those parks. And the design team has kind of identified this opportunity for us to focus on at the slip, where we can create a pedestrian zone along the slip where it can become open, active space. And that will give us greater connectivity to the parks on both Steelworkers Park to the south and Park 566 to the north. The second set of design principles fall into this idea of edges. And again, this is where this quantum computing development meets existing neighborhoods. It's very important for us to think about how does this impact where your existing community lies and where those existing parks lie. So as urban designers, as architects, we spend a lot of time thinking about this. And so the first thing we've been talking about is how do we create meaningful landscape setbacks, so green areas, where these development parcels meet the existing residential neighborhood. And then the second is how do we leverage high quality building materials and diverse architecture so that you create a place, that this feels like a place that is part of the community. So again, I have a couple slides that just try to graphically explain what we might be talking about here. And again, this is very, very conceptual at this point and somewhat of a diagram, but it will explain sort of what we're thinking about here. So as you look at this I hope I use the right directions here. On the left is sort of the neighborhood scale of residential houses. And you'll see that we're talking about 196 feet before you hit the first sort of new development building. And we're talking about 120 feet of green space from the street edge to that first building. So really substantial green space that sort of creates a landscape buffer between the new development parcels and the residential scale. Just as a frame of reference, that 120 feet is about not quite the depth of a standard Chicago city lot. So it's a very large depth to create that green space. And this is something that not only creates that buffer, but gives added green space to the community. And then this is another slide, again, just trying to conceptualize how that helps this development and sort of setting a tone for what we want, the kind of place that we want to create here. So again, you can see this kind of the existing neighborhood fabric to the left, and you'll see in this streetscape, again, the introduction of bike lanes. How are we addressing alternative forms of transportation? How does additional green space sort of enhance the community experience? So you can see that green space to the right. And again, looking at the scale of the buildings within our new development so that that green space helps transition to that 2- and 3-story buildings to the east. So again, these are very, very early studies that just try to help us understand that if we can employ these successful urban design principles, how that will make for a strong place as part of this development. Yeah, sure. If we could just hold questions to the end. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
Okay, that's great. On the right there, we have nothing but houses on this side. On the other side, there's nothing but whatever. And you're saying that you're trying, what are you going to do?
We don't know the exact program yet for those buildings. This is just conceptual design work. What we do know is the scale of building that we're talking about, so 2 to 3 stories on that edge. So we're just talking about the edges right now. No, not on. I'm sorry? No, we don't have a building program yet for that. We have not designed any specific program for that site yet.
I'm looking at this side of the street, and on that side of the street, if you go out there right now, there's nothing there but grass and trees. And I'm asking, since you're saying the greenery or whatever, what are you going to put on that side?
We have not planned, it has not been decided yet. We do not have a specific program for that site. Again, this is 400 and some acres. So the areas that we're talking about right now where we do have a building program is with PsiQuantum on the south side. So we won't know yet what that program is until we have potential tenants come to the table. So when we talk about edges, as I mentioned, when I talk about edges, we're talking about where the developable parcels meet the existing neighborhood or where they meet the park. So it can be where it meets existing space. So we have a site boundary, right, which is the U.S. Steel site. So where that site meets existing park or meets existing residential areas. Thank you. And we will have time for more questions after this. So maybe we could. So we're happy to answer questions, but why don't we get through the whole presentation then? Because these are all great questions for us to talk about. But just to be clear, these are really conceptual renderings. So those buildings are just concepts. It's not an actual design for an actual tenant yet, if that makes sense. But it's just trying to understand, like, okay, we need to have a green landscape buffer between existing neighborhood and potential new development. I think it's really important. And it's an area, again, where we can bring, not only keep the existing parks you have, but add more green space to this neighborhood. Okay, so the next set of sort of design principles we're talking about is environmental considerations. So this is where we talk a little bit about, this goes into a couple categories. The first is embracing bird-safe technology. I think we've all read a lot about the impact that building has on the migratory bird patterns in Chicago. It's devastating to the bird especially the migratory bird population. So one of the things we'll be asking all of our design teams to look at is implementing bird-safe strategies, whether that be bird-friendly glass, talking about mitigating light pollution so that we can control the impact, particularly to migratory birds, with this development. The second is to really be looking at native plantings to help. We want to employ native and adapted flora that are supportive of those migratory birds that also promote butterflies and other pollinator species all across the site. So again, thank you. So again, as we talk about environmental considerations, this sort of spills into a number of other categories. So we want to talk about diverse architectural expression. We don't want all the buildings to look exactly alike, so we'll employ a number of different architects and design strategies across the site. Again, we want to create a great place. We just talked about embracing bird-safe technology. This is important for all new projects across Chicago and the state. We want to use native landscaping as a balance to this new development where we can protect and support local wildlife and the migratory bird populations. We talk about high quality building materials in this category kind of for two reasons. One, we're talking about high quality building materials that have a low environmental footprint, but also that stand the test of time. We want to build buildings that look good today and will look good in 50 years. And one way of doing that is making sure that when we're building, we're selecting high quality materials. And then again, going back to landscape setbacks, this is just important of the environmental strategies that we want to use to make sure this is a friendly development for all. And the last category that we talk about is cultural interpretation. As I mentioned earlier, we recognize that this is a very important site for the community, for the city, for the state. A lot of what happened here is what helped build this nation. And it's important for us to remember that legacy as we develop this. So we're starting with, amongst the design team, to talk about how we might do that. So the first is to think about interpretive signage that we could install across the site that celebrates this heritage. The second is to engage the public across the site with street furnishings, landscape, and public art throughout the development, especially in the open spaces. And then it's to incorporate existing historic structures into the design and master planning. With any project like this, it's really important to look at what are the heritage pieces that you can build off, and there's certainly some really interesting opportunities here. And so this image starts to think about how we might employ that. And again, this is a very early idea about how we might do that. The ore walls that exist here along the slip are a really special place. it certainly talks about the heritage of the site, and we want to look at really creative ways to activate this. So this talks about creating pedestrian zones along the north and the south end of the slip, where we could create not only resident-friendly place, but it also, again, gives us additional connectivity to the existing parks. And it allows the slip to be open to the entire community. And then we start talking about the ore walls, and they're really interesting for not only their historic context, but also because it's kind of a big blank slate. And we're showing some colored images on here, and it's a placeholder for the idea that we might be able to tell the story of this community on those ore walls, either through graphic art, graffiti art, through projection. That's definitely an opportunity for us to activate those walls along that walk and a way to tell the story of this community. So now I'd like to pivot quickly and talk a little bit about the development progress and design progress. We will answer your question after we're finished with the presentation. Thank you. Is to talk a little bit our progress on the development of the early PsiQuantum work on the southeast corner of the site. And I just want to orientate everyone, especially for the people who maybe weren't here at the last meeting. So the PsiQuantum buildings will be accessed from 87th Street along a new road about 2/3 of the way down. Sorry, I don't have a pointer. But you'll travel along that new road, which will take you to the first phase building, which you'll see on this slide, which is called out as the PsiQuantum first phase. That's about a 75,000 square foot building at the edge of existing Steelworkers Park. And then there are 3 future phases that we've started laying out. You'll notice one difference in this is that in earlier images, we were showing a big placeholder for the PsiQuantum building that looked like a very big kind of shed building. We've now broken that up into a series of 3 buildings, again, to lower that scale a little bit, and those will be future phases for PsiQuantum. What you'll also start to see in this slide is those kind of green landscape buffers that we're talking about throughout the project. So you can see on the east face of that phase 1 building, fairly substantial landscape area that's interior to our property boundary, but is directly adjacent to the existing Steelworkers Park. You'll also see a landscape courtyard that we're creating between the phase 1 and phase 2 buildings. And then, of course, a landscape buffer to the south along the Calumet. And then again, just for the people who were not, or who may not have been in the earlier meeting or our last meeting, on the north side of this area is where the Illinois Quantum and Microelectronics Park will be developed. And again, that will be led with our partner with the U of I system that will be developed at a later date. And then between those two, the light blue box is the cryogenic, the area that we are dedicating for the cryogenic facility. So as we had discussed earlier, the quantum technology relies on, it needs to operate at a very low temperature. So the cryogenic facility creates that cold environment that it needs to exist. So that'll happen between these phase 2 and phase 3 PsiQuantum buildings and that IQMP park. And so then we have our very first image, and again, this is a very, very early image of this phase 1 building that we just talked, kind of come to play with this architecture. So of course you can see the native planting, the natural habitat that is welcoming to existing wildlife as well as migratory birds. This is a primarily 1-story building. It does have some floor-to-ceiling glass, which would employ bird-friendly glass and bird-friendly strategies. We're talking about high-quality materials, interesting architecture that help really make this a place, not only for the people who work there, but the people who visit there. So I hope, again, these are very early images and early ideas, but I hope it gives you some insight to sort of how we're trying to approach the site with a design sensitivity that is a value add for the community. And hopefully responds to, as you said, the values of the community and what they want to see in terms of enhanced green space, quality development, and environmentally sensitive development. Do you want to take it?
Yep. No, thank you for that question. Sorry. Do you want to speak to? Yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping in. No, so we are absolutely focused on the residents in the community immediately here. We recognize there are other stakeholders that are an important part of the conversation, but we are prioritizing the residents and community of South Chicago. Sorry for jumping in.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Anne, for that.
No.
This is a community meeting. This
Yep.
is nice that you all have a developmental plan, but you got to know that if you have a community meeting, it's going to be somebody that's going to come here that's going to shake the rattle and ask you the right type of questions that
Yep.
you ain't asking us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Actually, could we just give a round of applause? I only ask for, ma'am, yes, thank you. So I only ask for a round of applause because I know that it takes a lot of bravery to make those comments in this forum. And ma'am, what I would ask is we have,
I'm a precinct captain, 13 years in the 29th and the 37th ward. I'm in the mix or whatever. And once before, I give up. So I know how things go. I know how to think. City of Chicago for 17 years is what I want. You're not going to come over here and tell us how you all feel that live on the other side of the viaduct.
No.
Because you don't care about nobody in the bush.
no, thank No, thank you very much.
You don't care about us. I called your office plenty of times, and Miss Garcia, whoever it is that answers the phone, always puts me off. No one answers me. From the last alderman that was in the racist behind, she didn't help anybody over in the bush do anything. Nothing.
No. Thank you very much, ma'am. Extremely valid comments, and we appreciate that feedback. And I would love to talk with you more about this. Okay.
The question is about what community are we talking about? We're talking about the bush.
Yeah.
We're talking about
Yeah. Right.
And we deserve to have answers to what it is that you're doing. If you're going to beautify, you're going to beautify. But if you're going to do something to Rainbow Beach, you're not going to move us out of our park. We can't go
Yeah, right. No, understood, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, the bush, the community immediately here is the residents that we are prioritizing in this project, and that's why we're doing this meeting here, because we want to hear from the residents that are right here that are most impacted by this. Do you?
Here.
Okay. Sorry, we have apologies. We've got another 2 slides, and then we'll just break it from here. Thank you.
So here's what I would say. You know, over the last 3 months, we have been meeting with folks in the community in very different forums, right? One of them is this type of forum, large community forum. Others have been through smaller groups, through our listening sessions that are ongoing, and we're connecting and we're creating opportunities to have those conversations. We will come to you, and I promise you, we will have this type of meeting and small listening session with you and the group in the area. We will do that. The reason I bring this up is because after listening to the community through the various meetings we've had, right, or the events, right, the principals meetings, the trunk or treat, hearing from the community and getting back comments from them, we have realized that we have identified 7 areas that frame our community impact. So we're going to talk about those because over the next 6 weeks, we're going to be working with the aldermen in the city and the local residents to really create a more specific plan, right? Because details are important. We call it putting meat on the bone, because otherwise they're just talking points, and that doesn't mean anything, right? That's it. I agree with you 100%. So what are those 7 talking points? I don't know how to work this thing. There we go. All right. So what are those 7 impact areas that we want to make sure that we touch here? So 1, we will be building new housing in the community, right? Now, I'm getting to you. So what we will be doing is we will be partnering with local developers to infill housing in the empty lots across the neighborhood. Okay? We have some lots that we're working through, and we will be working with community to figure out what that looks like, right? So over the next 6 weeks, this is new to us, right? We've been here for 3 months. We're trying to get through all of the things that are important for the community. The second thing is that we'll be we'll be providing temporary activation for undeveloped parcels. What does that mean? That means areas that are completely vacant right now in lots that we can provide access. We want to make sure that we're activating in ways that we are doing right now at the 78. So what we're doing is things like putting in a sports complex for a temporary sports complex, or putting in a holiday event activation on the site so that community come to the site, we're there, and we can have that interaction, right? We will be making sure that we have access to open spaces and the creation of new park facilities, right? What is that? Ann and the team here have explained how we're connecting to the rest of the park and creating connectivity and making sure that it's open. All of these things we're developing over the next couple weeks, and we will present on December 10th. Maintaining the unique attributes of the North Slip and the Orwalls. Again, understanding and respecting and celebrating the history of this community as we build towards a new future, right? That's what we're coming with and asking for your input for over the next couple of weeks, right? We're listening. We don't know the answers. We are listening and trying to figure this out with you. The next thing is making sure that there is a sustained and ongoing investment in new projects within Alderman Chico and Alderman Mitchell's ward. Okay? Yes, we need to continue to look forward. So what does that look like for future developments within the community, right? We want to make sure that continues to happen. Job creation and future hiring opportunities on site. What does that look like? It includes pre-apprenticeship programs, training for residents, training for future kids. It looks like internships. We're working through those things with our partners in community like yourselves here today. Educational programs for students and current residents to learn more about quantum computing and microelectronics. We talked about the quantum game night. A lot of people learned what is quantum. We want to continue to educate folks, not only the students, but also the parents and the adults and the grandparents, so that they can bring in their kids to this great opportunity. So as we work through all of this, we are going to be asking of you, and we appreciate all of you guys that are here today, because we need from you continued engagement, right? You need to provide the feedback. You need to participate in the quality of life plan so that we can hear about it and learn more about it. And it's brand new, so she's rolling this out. So just bear with us as we're working through this process. And I hear you. So I hear you, and we will be correcting that, and moving forward, you will be notified with adequate time. Yeah. So this is great, and I don't have the answer for that because this is your community. But here's what I would tell you. As Rosa explained earlier, your feedback is critical. It is absolutely critical. Your engagement, your feedback, your participation in the quality of life plan, because at the end of the day, it is your voice that's going to help create this plan. Okay?
All right. All right. Okay, thank you so much for that. Thank you for the presentation. So, all right, so what we're going to do at this point, and I recognize that we've run long here, but we are going to break out into smaller groups again to allow for more dialogue across these different areas, right? So this is just a quick layout of the school. This is similar to what we did before, but the intent here is to have more focused conversations so we can get feedback and the questions, just like the lady here was asking. All right, so if, just a quick layout, if you are interested more on the edges and the development piece, please stay here in the gym. If you are focused on environment or more interested in that conversation, that'll be the first classroom on the right. If you want to talk to the Sci Quantum team and learn more about quantum or the IQMP itself, that'll be the band room.